In the business world, there's a concept called Goodhart's Law, which is the idea that when a measure becomes a target, it stops being a good measurement. And while this is true in business, I believe it applies very well to running as well. On the running side, it can apply to basically anything that your watch is going to tell you: distance, time, pace, heart rate. Anything that your watch is going to measure can fall victim to this law. I think it's far too common to see runners out on the roads constantly checking their watch, always making sure that they're within this narrow window of pace or heart rate, just always adjusting their pace to make sure they're within that, got to stay within that certain zone. And then related to that, which I think is even worse, is people following like pre-prescribed, like formulaic increases in pace. Like you follow a training plan where your easy pace is going to be this for 3 weeks, and then we're going to bump it up 10-15 seconds for the next 3 weeks. Progress doesn't happen like that, but when that pace is the target, that's all you're focused on, that's what you're going to try to optimize for. Ideally, based on the law, you don't want these measurements to become targets. You want to keep them as measurements. So ideally, you go out on a run, you have your watch on, but you just go by feel, do your thing, do what feels right. And then afterwards, the watch has recorded all that data that you can then go back and look at. Rather than trying to hit this specific heart rate and stay there, or hit this specific pace and hold it the whole way, those measurements of heart rate and pace you can look at after your runs and day to day, and they can actually provide useful info for you as opposed to just being like guide rails. So if you just go by feel and let the watch record how things go, over time, if you start to notice that your pace is getting faster, or maybe your heart rate is getting lower as that pace is staying the same, that's a pretty good sign that you are actually making progress. Letting it happen naturally and not trying to pre-program it in. And then on the other side, if you start to notice that your heart rate is higher at the same pace, or your paces start to drop, that could be a sign of fatigue, overtraining, under-recovering. Maybe you're getting sick. But you can see that when you're not locked into things like pace and heart rate, you can actually learn from them and kind of see how your training is going, like check in with yourself. And with pace and heart rate, it can kind of be more of like a day-to-day thing, but it can also apply to even more like a macro scale. If you're looking at volume, whether you're measuring that with like miles or time, if you make hitting a certain miles per week your main target in training, it can kind of get you into this tunnel vision where that's all that matters. Throughout the course of a week, maybe you're running too hard, maybe you're running too easy, maybe you become just obsessed with tracking every little thing, every stride, every step that you run has to be counted and tracked and logged. Maybe you end up pushing through pain that maybe you should sit out for. On all of this just because your brain is dead set on hitting that mileage target no matter what. But the number of miles you run doesn't necessarily equal how your training is actually going. It's like, how did you actually get those miles? How did you come to get that number? How hard did you have to push yourself to get there? And is what you did for this week or maybe 2 or 3 weeks actually sustainable in the long term? All those questions get ignored when the focus is just hit that number and there's no focus on anything else. You can't let that miles per week become a target that just becomes more important than anything else. But no matter what, when you're training, every so often you've got to check in with yourself and just kind of do a self-reflection. Make sure that you're not trying to pick out any of these specific metrics and over-optimizing for it at the expense of everything else. I've been guilty of it myself. There's been plenty of runs where it doesn't matter how I feel or what's going on, like you just try to hit like an average pace for whatever reason, or pushing through injury, just trying to keep my mileage at a certain number. it's not a good place to be. So just be smart and always just try to have the presence of mind to just think about what you're doing and be more deliberate and careful. It's good to zoom back out and just get an idea of the bigger picture. So hopefully this helps you out on your training journey. If you want some additional help with your training, you can check the links in my description. I do online coaching, custom training plans, some courses, all sorts of stuff to give you that little bit of an extra edge in your training, more so than you get just from my YouTube videos. So yeah, if you're interested, check that out. But otherwise, thanks for watching.